I'd love to hand over to Ian Southam, who is the Commercial Manager for DST Innovations, who are new partners for the region. And if you don't know or haven't heard of DST Innovations, then Ian will fill you in a little bit about them. And they are also behind the newly designed Tidal Lagoon project, which is for the moment called Blue Eden.
Blue Eden, correct.
Over to you, Ian.
Well, let me give you a little bit of a kind of history lesson first. So, DST Innovations has been in existence now for about 10 years, but really it's part of a smaller, loosely formed group of really 3 companies. The first one of which was conceived and established by our founder, Tony Miles, about 20 years ago, which was a company called Technologists. Technologies is still active, is still trading as of today, and is very active within the cybersecurity space, boasting such clients as Disney, HBO, NBC, Universal, Warner Brothers, Amazon. And essentially what it is, it's a company that offers software that protects digital assets. So if you take your last blockbuster movies, Spider-Man 4, for example, No Time to Die, all of those assets will have gone through our servers to be protected during the production and post-production phases. So essentially, it's an decryption service specifically for the media sector. Been going about 20 years, obviously on the basis that it has such big names, such as the likes of Disney, Warner Brothers, that have theme parks, and have also requested other offerings from us over time. About 10 years ago, there'd been a build-up of IP, which it was felt would be better suited within another entity and didn't really fit within the Technologies portfolio. And so DST Innovations was spawned to really take advantage of some of that IP and to develop it on further. So DST was set up initially with 2 people, with laboratory space and office space also here in Bridgend. And that was developed, built on, expanded upon, enhanced to the point where we needed to find an outlet for some of that IP. And so the decision was made about 7 years ago now to start looking into some specific market verticals, such as lighting, digital out of home, and printed electronics. So let me take the first 2 bits first. So the lighting and the digital out of home. So digital out of home, large format screens. There's nothing I can tell you or even point you to in the UK, because all of our projects have taken place in North America, specifically within Las Vegas, which is our shop window. Our first project was initially the first or the largest e-gaming screen globally, which was set up within a Luxor hotel in Las Vegas, and is actually now on the list of features to take around Las Vegas if you do a tour. But that's been in situ now for about 4 or 5 years. On the back of that, then we also spun off at the Luxor with the lighting on the ridge lights of the iconic Pyramid Hotel in Las Vegas. So all of the lighting that runs up the side, the 4 vertices, was also designed, conceived, manufactured by contract manufacturers and installed by DST about 3 years ago, 2 years ago now, 2-3 years ago. I've lost a bit of track of time because obviously with the pandemic, everything's kind of condensed time-wise. We also have some other projects on there. I'll show you some sort of details of these a little bit later. But so the New York hotel on the Las Vegas Strip has an all singing, all dancing water wall that was also conceived, designed, installed, and supported by DST. And then the last major project that we did on the New York Strip was at the Circa Hotel. Circa Hotel at the countdown for 2021. Seems a long time ago now, doesn't it? A lot happened between now and then. But the countdown for 2021 was on the outside of the building, which houses all of our lighting show for the hotel and also for the largest parking lot in the world, the Garage Mahal. So it's very sort of creative in terms of some of the naming conventions that they come up with. And everything was going sort of gangbusters, and then of course we all know what happened. So a lot of the projects that we're working with were really put on hold short term, as the hospitality industry took a bit of a dip. and they're now starting to come back into fruition. So we start to get busy now with a number of these bigger projects now starting to be reinstated. And at some point, when we're allowed to travel and we can jump on a plane without having to test ourselves too much, we're flying off to Las Vegas again. So whilst that was going on, the pandemic was starting. Out of the printed electronics research and development, which was, say, so we have the screens, we have the lighting, we have the printed electronics development. We went down the road of developing some new battery technology based on sodium-ion methodology. Because again, batteries predominantly they're made now using lithium and cobalt and rare earth metals, which is non-sustainable as we progress. Also, with the whole world now trying to reduce its reliance on carbon, we needed to find an alternative. So we've been working on this now for about 5 years. And have come up with, we've worked with some universities locally. So we had collaborations with Swansea University, or have had collaborations with Swansea University, with Cardiff University, with Bath, with Bristol, specifically on the battery manufacturing side with Manchester Metropolitan, where we have a knowledge transfer partnership. So, so we've recently spun out battery into a third company. So now we have 14 Technologists, DST Innovations and Battery Limited, which comprise this kind of small group of companies. And with for battery and DST, we currently have a facility being manufactured or being really equipped in West Virginia. And I'll come on to why West Virginia in a minute. We're also looking at moving out from our current facilities here in Bridgend on the business centre into a purpose-built pilot line manufacturing facility for batteries and the warehousing staging facility for DST and for Fortium. And those two pilot lines, feeder lines, are then destined to feed into a 6 gigawatt battery manufacturing facility, which will be located at, in case you're wondering where this is going, Swansea, in the Blue Eden development. So, whilst everything was happening with the previous legacy projects, the Tidal Lagoon project, which I guess everybody that's got any association with Swansea, and I live in Swansea myself, so I've been kept kind of watching brief on this for some time now. We were looking for a facility where we'd be able to manufacture batteries, so green technology using sodium and coal. And everyone says, well, how are you using coal with if it's carbon, and where are you going to get your coal from? Well, we're still going to be using coal, which is going to be locally sourced, but that coal is totally, we can convert it into hard and activated carbons, and it's totally recyclable, so it's not burned, so it doesn't end up in the atmosphere. But we were looking for a facility where we could site a large battery manufacturing plant. We wanted something that would ideally be capable of generating its energy from renewable sources. So of course, when the previous project stalled, and it really stalled on the back of it being financially non-viable, we put together an alternative financial model whereby the facility itself would be powered by the electricity generated from the Tidal Lagoon, but it didn't necessarily have to be powered by the electricity generated from the Tidal Lagoon. So Blue Eden was spawned, looking at a totally different business model, one that was financially viable, that didn't require any form of government subsidy, that would be 100% privately funded, and we have a consortium of international investors who've already given their backing to this. And now we're just going through the whole process really of the planning applications, the licensing with the various entities such as ABP, Swansea Council, Crown Estates, Natural Resources Wales, to put together a proposal that I think everybody wants to happen, but of course, until you get the signature on the bottom line to allow you to make it happen, it still remains a kind of a vision at the moment. Ideally, we would like to call it Blue Eden. The Eden project people at the moment have question mark, and they're looking into whether or not we are allowed to call it Blue Eden, but we think it's different enough from the Eden project that we can defend it. And the reason for Blue Eden is that literally it's a walled development, and it's going to be full of water, hence the blue. So we're in the process now of pulling together partners. This is why I was a little bit sort of a few minutes late for this call. So we're talking to a number of large players, which I can't divulge who they are because we are bound under confidentiality and NDAs. But we have some large industry players who are interested in backing this. We have some large financial institutions who are also interested in investing in this, even though at the moment we don't need the money. But if somebody wants to throw their hat in the ring and make a pitch, obviously we're here to listen as well. But the whole idea with this is that this will be a self-sustaining, self-fulfilling project that will, for us, allow us to have a battery site. That is our one driving aim behind this, to have something that where we can manufacture batteries that are going to be used predominantly in off-grid storage capabilities. So we're not looking at doing car batteries or batteries for your mobile phone. These are going to be large-scale, sort of containerized battery storage units to support the grid. But in addition to that, the financial viability of the model really ties into the rest, which if I may, I can share some information with you. So I guess everybody recognizes what's in front of them there. Of course, that's not necessarily where the lagoon is going to be. So the lagoon is going to be kicking in from the kind of the left-hand side of this. And I can distribute this afterwards. This is in the public domain, so I'm happy to distribute this to you afterwards. You can send it over to everybody else. But essentially, the idea with this is that the key headlines are 1.7 billion investment, initial investment. The overall investment is going to be nearer to the 4.2 billion mark. But the value of the development at the end is estimated to be around the 12 billion pound mark. So this is really first iteration. It's constantly moving because we're looking at what we do in the immediate future, and then what may be other potential bolt-ons to this further down the line, and further announcements will be made as we proceed. But essentially, what we're looking to have is to have a battery manufacturing facility, a data center, some research facilities, but all within this sort of contained Eden type of concept where people can live, work, and play all within close proximity of one another. So let's just skip over some of this bit. So the idea really is to attract people into the area as well. And obviously we've been working with Swansea City Council on this as to what are the imperatives for them to be able to make this a viable project. Clearly, the 1,200 jobs that we're looking to create, we're probably not going to have sufficient people locally at this stage. So we need to be able to attract the right candidates. And these are going to be sort of highly paid, well-paid jobs for people who are skilled. We're also working with the council, with the colleges, so that when we're actually ready to press the button and go live with this, we've got some people coming out of the colleges who are adequately trained with the skills that they're going to need for the specific functions. Within the community, it's going to be a nice place to live. So obviously it's going to be nicely landscaped, waterfront facilities. So what's not to like, really? Oops. And they say it's really trying to future-proof everything. So if we look at the Natural Resource Wales predictions, if we leave it too long, the whole area is going to be underwater. So by putting in an enclosed complex, raising the walls up, it actually protects it from the proposed increases in the tides and flooding risk as we go forward. So this, I mean, I dare say people have seen a lot of this in the local press. Very much the kind of the 35,000 foot view, really, which I say so. Shall go into too much detail on this unless people need further detail afterwards. But the first thing is that everybody can see where the location is intended to be. So it's on the current port area, which is falling into a little bit of a state of disrepair. So we're in advanced discussions with ABP as to what we need to do to A, acquire the land, B, for ABP to continue to run the port. So we need to keep the port functional as a functional and viable entity. But moreover, in certain areas of this where BP used to be, there is an indication of land contamination. And so there's a study about to start, if it hasn't already started by ABP, it's due to be imminent, to establish precisely what that level of contamination is and what are going to be the mitigating factors to correct it. That's just again, we look at breaking it down into the various parts. So this part here, we're going to have 3 battery manufacturing plants. And the reason we're breaking it into 3 areas is so that we can break it down into 3 different types of manufacture. So we'll have coin cells, we'll have pouch cells, and we'll also have an R&D area. So it keeps the 3 separate. Just makes it a lot easier from a manufacturing and a flow perspective in the actual production cycle. The data center will be over 6 floors, based down here. So we already have. I guess with data centers and battery factories, it is a little bit like, I don't know if you've seen the film Field of Dreams, but it's a build it and they will come. So already there's a lack of identified sites for batteries. The capacity for batteries is woefully short of what's going to be required for the next sort of 10, 20, 30 years. So, but this will be the batteries specifically for us as battery stroke DST. Similarly with the data center, we have people clamoring now to say, well, when could we potentially move in? So the battery facility and the data centers, in their own rights, if we built them now and we ran them, they would be self-financing. After that, we then move into the oceanic and climate change centres. Some of this is people want to kind of fly their way into heaven a little bit, but nonetheless, it gives people or a number of companies the opportunity to look to the future. So it provides also then the potential for us to work with the local universities as well, to provide space within these facilities for further development and climate work. In terms of the social, we're having an amphitheatre here, so hopefully we might be able to get some people come and play and do some nice little concerts for us. Nice little area to sit outside. It's not a golf course, as some people thought it was. And then the other part about this is that it's not critical for us really for the viability, the financial viability of the project, but in terms of attracting people to come and live and work in the area, it's pretty important. So there's a mixture there of affordable housing and then some more luxury apartments to attract people at different levels within the sort of the management tiers of the organisation. Nice little floating houses here. So we're in consultation now and talked to a number of companies that specialise in this area. And then we have the floating arrays here for the solar, which again feeds into the battery plant, which will be down this little area here. The beauty of this site, and one of the reasons for looking at this site, is that with all of this, what you have to do is when you're creating the electricity, is where you're going to put it. And there's already infrastructure in place just across the other side of the estuary here, where the previous Bagland power plant was. So we can hook up directly into resource, which is pretty much on the doorstep. So proximity of access to move the electricity on, so that we can actually power homes and businesses locally as well. The availability of a natural resource in terms of the Swansea tide, that still from the last time I saw rises and falls pretty regularly, and with a great deal of reliability that will drive the turbines to create electricity. And also the fact that we're already based down in South Wales, all of those played nicely into our hands, and we have a very good relationship with Swansea Council, who are obviously great advocates of the previous scheme prior to it falling through. So in phase one, as I said, phase one is really to do the batteries, the battery facilities, and the battery farm. So the electricity generated through the solar will be fed through into the farm, into the batteries here, which will then link through into the main supply. So batteries will be the first thing, in conjunction with generating or creating or building the solar array, which will also help feed into this, and then also feed into the data center. So phase one. This is all before any lagoon is potentially built. So actually all phases of these run in parallel with the lagoon. But what we're saying is that really this phase one is not dependent on having the lagoon in situ. So there you go, battery farm, battery gigafactory, and the data center. Phase two then is more moving on to some of the nicer to have elements. So the Oceanic Climate Change Center, which will feed into us working with local businesses, hopefully, and also some academic institutes. The domes here, visitor zone, still to be determined precisely what to put into these, but it's something that will give local companies a little bit like sort of Plantasia opportunity to come up with suggestions as to what we actually place into them. So what we've tried to do again with this is not be sort of hard and fast about this is going to be here, this is going to be there, and this is what it's going to be used for. So this is very much sort of a developing concept, where we'll be then working with local companies for the region, asking people on this board to come up with what would they like to see, and then feeding that into the wider plan. This is very much at the moment a 35,000 foot view. Phase three then is the homes. So it's the floating homes here. We're working with a company, if anybody wants to look them up, called Blue 21 in the Netherlands. They've already done this type of thing. So they'll do the floating homes, and then we'll work with local building contractors to come up with plans for the phase three, which will be the final 5 years of what is going to be a 12-year project. So phase one, 5 years, phase two, 2 years, phase three is the final 5 years. So 12 years, start to finish. And really, the idea with this is that because the data center is going to be so big, data center generates heat. That heat will then be recycled. So anybody having a home within the development will have free heating for life. It's part of the kind of the selling. So wherever we can, so using solar. There are plans afoot as well. So the next iteration of this will show some potential wind turbine application, and also potentially putting some solar panels out more into the lagoon to sort of future-proof this even further. So it gives an idea about floating eco homes. Doesn't necessarily have to be that design, but gives a concept. Lagoon itself, for anybody of a sort of a technical bent, this was the first pass. But again, as we've started to dig into this and work with some of the larger engineering companies who are very keen to get involved with this whole development, there are some different ideas and different thought processes now coming to bear. So this is subject to change as we move forward into a bit more kind of fine tuning, really. So as I say, the idea with this is it's a 12-year project based over the 3 phases. The first phase itself is pretty fundamental to the whole thing, because we have to find a mechanism to create electricity and to be able to sell it on at favourable or certainly market suitable rates, rather than just selling it at cut price back to the grid, which is essentially where the last project stalled, because the subsidies aren't realistically going to be there. So if we can do this, we can fund it privately. We don't have to go capping out to government. It just removes one obstacle to pushing this thing through to the next stage. And these are some of the some of the future things that we're looking at is harnessing wind, and we're in consultation and conversation at the moment with some local companies that can provide this kind of facility for us. let's say the enhanced floating solar array, which would take just not only in the Queen's Dock, but also put into the lagoon itself. Some offshore hydrogen manufacturing, which then ties in quite nicely with Tata Steel's future plans to go carbon neutral. So they're looking to use energy. So we were in discussions with Tata Steel as well. And then also further down the line, some tidal stream at the estuary, as opposed to just using the harnessing the power that's coming from the tide on the actual the rise and fall of the tide. So that's kind of Blue Eden in a nutshell. There are lots of hoops still that we have to jump through. So we are putting together a consortium of companies who are very, very keen to get involved with this, not only from a kind of a supply of technology perspective, but also from an investment perspective. So I would love to tell you who they are. They're household names within large construction projects. Is probably as much as I can say at this stage, but further information will be put out to market as we proceed down the line. So we're in talks with large construction companies, we're in talks with large energy companies, and we're in talks with some very large project management and construction companies to actually manage this as well. Because you probably ask the question, well, how is a small company in Bridgend really going to manage this project? Well, essentially we're not. So we will work with collaboration partners to make sure that this gets delivered. The contacts that we have are at very senior levels within governments, within financiers, and within some of the constructors as well. So there are hoops to jump through. We still have to put our planning applications in and get it approved. In principle, what we've put forward so far we've been told it will be approved. But of course, as I say, until it's actually rubber stamped and signed, it's never approved. We've also got some further conversations. We're in consultation still with ABP to buy the port itself and have them continue to run it with us or for us. And we also have to work with Natural Resource Wales and with Crown Estates. At any point down that line, we could run into a hurdle. We don't know at the moment. We're still confident this will go forward. We think we've got very strong arguments as to mitigate any concerns that they might have, and of course the fact that there is the precursor with the Tidal Lagoon PLC project that went a long way down the line of allaying many of those fears, basically to be scuppered by financial considerations. So that's where we're at. Lots to do.
Yeah.
People still to talk to. I think it's one of those things that everybody you talk to that has any association with Swansea would love this to happen. But it's got to happen, and it's got to be ecologically suitable. It's got to add something and bring something to the city itself. But I think with everything that we've put forward so far, this enhances the city. So it's not intended to be a standalone project that we just deliver it, we put the houses on it, and we walk away. This is going to tie into all of Swansea City's future plans as well. Hence the reason why we started this whole concept. Not from a how do we generate electricity and sell it to the grid perspective, but how do we make a financially, economically viable concern that adds to the region, and then from there we then work backwards through the council to get buy-in, and so far it's kind of moving forward, and it's creating a buzz around it. And to say since we've announced this back in. When it was end of November or mid-November, there's been a lot of people come out of the woodwork who are very, very keen to be associated with this. A lot of companies already who've burned a lot of money on the previous legacy project, so they're keen for it to happen as well, because of course they want to recoup some of the assets that they've already pledged into this. So yeah.
Thanks, Ian.
That's DST. So DST and Battery are the two companies that are together. That's why I have to give a bit of background. DST and Battery, the two companies working together on this. So the Battery ultimately for manufacturing, DST is a kind of coordination entity. Things may change as we move forward, but that's it at the moment. And if anybody's interested in any of the projects that DST has done, I did say that I would show you what they were.
Yeah, sorry, but
so this
I know there's people chomping at the bit to ask you some questions, Ian.
Sure.
So.
Okay, I just got to say,
Yeah, that's
very,
fine.
very briefly. So, I mean, yeah, anybody that's been there, everyone knows that's, it's not Blackpool, that's actually like, well, it's not Paris, it's Las Vegas. These are just some of the jobs that we did. So the Vertex Hotel, we did all of the lighting at the side here, and we just at the moment, this bid for the beam at the top has just opened back up again. So we just bid in and demoed that 2 weeks ago. Then New York Water War, big singing and dancing. So the music plays and this dances in time to the music. It's previously just plain white and pretty dull. Circa Hotel, this one I did the countdown. So for 2021, so we provided all of this blue lighting here, and similarly, no, there's nothing going on the car park. And then this was the big screen that went into the esports arena. It's now the second biggest in the world. The biggest now is in Turkey, but at the time this was the biggest esports screen. And people sit here, and I find it quite strange, but my 12-year-old son thinks it's brilliant sitting watching people play games on the telly. So that was that one. And again, some sort of outdoor screens. This one tours all the way around the US, sort of coast to coast, and they pop this up on a big hydraulic ramp. And again, people sitting here and play games, and people sit and watch it. So this is just one of the other projects that we're currently dealing with, which is up in Tidal.
Thanks, Ian. That's brilliant.
Right, so that's kind of an overview, really, as to where we're at. Yeah.
Ian, I'm sure that everybody's got lots and lots of questions, as I did when you showed me the first time. I just think it blows my mind how somebody from Bridgend, a company that lots of us have probably never heard of before, has been working.
And to be honest with you, Zoe, the reason why, we've been the best kept secret in Wales, certainly on the cyber security side with Fortium, because you don't really want to be singing from the rooftops that you've got a cyber security project that protects billions of dollars worth of assets every year, because you're just opening yourself up to every kind of bedroom warrior that wants to sort of jump on the bandwagon and try and hack your system. So far, fingers crossed, it hasn't happened. So touch wood, it hasn't happened. So yeah, we have very robust systems. And similarly with DST, we wanted to get into a position where we have these reference sites around, really ideally around the world. It just happened that we started off in the US, where one of the board members of DST was very entrenched within the entertainment industry, specifically within Las Vegas, and so we targeted that to be Las Vegas as our showroom, and it's, on the one hand it's great, on the other hand it can be counterproductive, because you talk to people in the UK and they go, no, but we're not Vegas. Well, the idea is not that we want the UK, we don't want Bridgend to be Las Vegas, God forbid. However, it shows you some of the scope and the scale of some of the projects that we've been involved with, and have really kind of punched above our weight for a company in Bridgend.
Think big. I think one of the plans that we saw for the Tidal Lagoon, in between this stage, we were nearly going down the Dubai route with the floating dragon in the middle. Anyway, I'm sure Vicky's had her hand up and down. Vicky. Over to you. Are you there? Oh, are you there, Vicky?
It's a couple of questions. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm in Portugal. It doesn't make any difference or not. Can you expand a little bit on your connection to the coal industry, dependence on coal? So two questions. I'll just shove them together, and I won't have to speak. And the other one was to do with the new energy company that the Welsh government is planning to set up, and will you be working with them? So those are two questions.
Sorry, I missed the second part of that. Vicky.
Oh, sorry. Wales is planning, I understand, a national energy company with a focus on renewables, and I was wondering if you're working with them. That was the second question.
Okay, I can't answer specifically on the second one because I don't know. What I can tell you is that we're working with pretty much every entity. So we were one of the founder members of Green Industries Wales. I think you've come across Green Industries Wales with Mark Powney, and the former First Minister is heading that up. So we're one of the founding members of that. So we are collaborating very closely with other companies and with government entities within that renewable energy sector. Specific to the question that you asked, I honestly don't know the answer to that, but I can find out and certainly advise through Zoe. With regard to the first question, though, so yes, one of the key components within the batteries that we're making is hard or activated carbon. And hard or activated carbon can come from really any organic source. So it's used a lot for coconut shells, so ground up coconut shells or palm nut shells or whatever it might be. But because of our association with South Wales and because of our association with West Virginia, both of which sit on the same coal seam, so globally, the same coal runs underneath the Atlantic, right into West Virginia, the same as in South Wales. So we're looking to try and support local businesses wherever we can to use that natural resource, but use the natural resource in a way which is ecologically viable. So again, we will be making an announcement soon on what that collaboration is likely to look like down here in South Wales. But we are intending to work with a local manufacturer or a local colliery to use their products that will then be refined, converted into hard and activated carbon for use within our battery cell manufacturing, along with the sodium ion. It's a fair. I've actually got I've got some information that I can pass on to Zoe after this. It's a little booklet all about why we're doing what we're doing and how carbon fits into that. And I can supply that in English or in Welsh if people prefer. But we put that together some time ago and we've sent that out to people who've expressed an interest. It basically breaks it down and explains why using coal is viable in this specific instance. Because I know that the government and announcements have been made about closing down all the pits in the UK and blah blah blah. It's not necessary. We're not looking to burn the carbon. We're looking to refine it, and during the refining process, then all of the sort of harmful gases will be filtered off at that point.
Thanks, Ian. I hope that's okay, Vicky. She just commented in the thing now. Thank you. As Ian has mentioned, his information on the Blue Eden project and any other information, I'll make sure that's circulated to everybody because I know some of you were quite keen to use the presentation. Lee.
But I'll send you a bit about the battery manufacturing as well. So what's involved in the battery manufacturing and the rationale for doing what we're doing.
Thanks, Ian. Lee.
So this is the procurement thing, right? This meeting. So I just wanted to make a little plug for my dad's company in Brechford, which does wind energy met mast installation, and they've done that for more than 30 years now. So based in Brechford, local company, local employees, highly skilled, all the equipment. It's called solarwheel.co.uk, and they.
What I'd urge anybody to do here, because we, as I said when I was doing a little bit about it, since this went public, you probably imagine that we've been inundated with people offering anything from nuts and bolts through to whole sort of large multinational companies that could run a whole project for us. But we're collecting all of this information together at the moment. So if you could drop me a line through either to myself directly or via the contact@dst-innovations.net. We collect all that information, we're putting it onto a database, and then as we go down the road and we get more specific with specific requirements, then we'll contact people. Our preference here is to work with local companies, to be brutally honest. So yes, there's obviously the large multinationals that have a role to play, but they can't fulfill every single thing. And part of what we're doing is we'll be specifying with those multinationals that these are the people, these are our preferred supply partners.
Great.
So please do, by all means, send the information through.
You know that we'll be championing and making sure that we hold DST to account on that. Sure. And as partners, we're looking forward to working with them to make sure that they get to know the local markets and
this is
what
one
we've
of many.
got to offer.
This whole the Blue Eden development is really a concept. So it's that, and that concept now has been rolled out. So we're in discussions now with people in the Middle East. So, so there's an opportunity there, but rather than using tidal energy, it'll be using tidal stream and solar for obvious reasons. Then we also have a similar project in North America that would be using tidal stream and wind. And then we also have an opportunity, it's still in its infancy at the moment, which would be in Australia. So it's taking this Blue Eden concept of having ecologically or renewable energy sources that can then be used in specific instances, specifically though with battery manufacturing, because there's just not enough battery manufacturing facilities globally to meet future demand.
Can I slip a little question in on that then? So we've been doing quite a lot of off-grid energy for One Planet development homes around Wales.
Yeah.
And obviously batteries are expensive, like one of the most expensive components of any off-grid energy system. Will yours be, you know, have you any plans to make some that are sort of domestic scale, or are they all so huge that they need to be in containers? Is that
So there's two things that we're looking to do. So so we're still developing the sodium ion battery, which is going to be the off-grid storage where space isn't really of the essence. So these will be large, 40-foot containers full of battery cells, basically. What we're also doing though in the short term is we'll be manufacturing some batteries using, unfortunately having to use lithium at the moment because there's no alternative. So we'll use that within our manufacturing process, but the idea then ultimately is to phase those out as we go further down the line, because one, the cost of lithium is going to go through the roof. Secondly, the source of lithium is relatively limited and is in parts of the world that are politically unstable. And thirdly, if you have a large lithium facility and it were to catch fire, you'd never put it out. So if we had lithium batteries in Swansea that caught fire, it would burn a hole in the ground. So they're not really ideally suited to large domestic supplies. But by the same token, the sodium ion, it doesn't have the same energy density as lithium. So it's a balancing act at all times. The idea is that we will have batteries that will be linked to solar for home use. We'll be issuing some information on this soon. Specifically, though, in the Blue Eden project, the homes that we're looking there to power and heat will come from an offshoot of the surplus heat generated by the data centers.
Thanks, Ian. Is that okay, Lee?
Yeah, amazing.
Has anyone else got any questions? Anybody got any burning questions for Ian while we've got him here? Sandy, hi.
Hi. I was just wondering from the homes side of things, because obviously that's where my business area is. I heard, Ian, you said something about a company from the Netherlands. Are they already tied in there?
No. No. So what we're doing, as I say, when we first sort of put this idea out, one of the companies that we had some interest from, or we'd spoken to, we'd identified them actually, was Blue 21. They're in the Netherlands, and they've done this type of thing already. It's obviously in the Netherlands, it's already a lot of reclaimed land. So they were the kind of first people, and if you're on LinkedIn and type Blue 21, they're all over LinkedIn, they're all over this in a minute. So so they do floating homes. They offer floating homes. They're not the only game in town, and certainly it's not a done deal.
Okay.
So there's opportunities for floating homes or for anything really. So we've got the floating homes which sit in the Queen's Dock, and then the rest of the housing around the edge of the development will be traditional sort of brick block built properties.
We've got some new floating hotels down in Milford Haven. You'll have to pop down and have a little look at those, Ian. Yeah. Chris, you've got a question for Ian?
Yeah, so just quickly, because I know time's pushing on. So as I mentioned, I'm from Oriel Science. That's a Swansea University public engagement project. So two things. I guess you're working with people in Swansea University. I mean, there's lots of research being done in batteries and so on. So that's good to confirm that. And also, would you have an interest in showcasing some of your ideas and projects in Oriel Science or working together? I mean, you mentioned, for instance.
Yeah, more than happy. In fact, we're doing in March. We've got a sort of showcase of the various companies to go on a student recruitment drive. So we had 3 students from Swansea here last year. This year, with all of the challenges in place with travel restrictions and having people in the offices, we kept one on while he's doing his final year. He wants to come and join us at the end. But he was more on the kind of electronics side. So we didn't really have anybody in the university that was specific to batteries. But electronics, I mean, we are really the electronics company. It just happens that the electronics that we were looking to develop, we pushed into the battery sector because we saw there to be a big opportunity there. But yeah, we're more than happy to engage with really anybody that if they think they've got something to add to us or think that we have something that we can add to them. This is about more of a kind of public engagement, business to business engagement, because as Zoe said, no one knows DST, no one knows battery, and we have to change that, and it is changing now as a result of the marketing effort we put behind Blue Eden.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I'll put you guys, I'll share your emails with each other. It'd be great to get Tidal Lagoon in your site in the city centre. That'd be fab, Chris. Good idea. Yeah. Dave.
Ian, thank you very much. It's very informative. We've always been supportive of the Tidal Lagoon and the concept of it, and the belief that the use of the energy in the private sector was much more viable than trying to get the government to support it. So we're designers of private microgrids, data centres, and we have a huge need locally for a data centre with our global partners at this moment. We're very much like you. We're a small business with global connectivity. We're looking at high-speed, low-latency data connectivity, linking the supercomputer networks throughout Wales and the world at this moment in time with a fibre optic network. And that's about 400 gigabit to 1 terabit per second transfer speeds. And that's in line with one of the world's largest data center providers. So there's an awful lot of what you've talked about, which overlaps with our needs.
Oh, I'm sure.
And we just designed and supplied the first private microgrid in Wales. Okay. For the Welsh government, but I can't talk about that under NDA.
No, exactly. We're both contained by our NDAs.
So there's an awful lot that I think that we're dealing with non-fungible tokenization and Bitcoin and the growth in data need in relation to the same, and also our partners in America are also funding via the NFT model at this moment in time with some live projects.
Okay.
So I think there's quite a lot that we can talk about in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
And look forward to catching up with you again.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think this is all just about putting this out there, and then we can start to sort of talk together and collaborate wherever it's feasible to collaborate. Really,
that'd be great.
And I think what we're looking to do now is really we don't have a presence. We don't have any kind of entity in the UK that we've pushed out to. So we're looking at trying to partner with companies as well that can work with us on Blue Eden, but also work with us or with whom we can work in other projects outside of Blue Eden. So we have the lighting, we have the screens, we have in-house sort of design and development capabilities. So we're looking to push that out a bit further now and start singing this from the rooftops rather than sort of hiding our light under a bushel and hoping that somebody might find us at some point down the line. So and
you're really keen to understand the abilities of what we've got here in the region, isn't it? So that you can tap in and collaborate, as you've mentioned before.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. I mean, for us, if we can work locally, it's much better, more straightforward for us to work here locally than it is to jump on a plane and be flying halfway across the world to Las Vegas, as nice as it is, and certainly as much warmer than it is here. But it brings with it its inherent issues as well. That you've still got to support that and back it all up. So local projects for us are really important, and we'd love to engage with other people outside of the Blue Eden project, the Blue Eden developments. We call it Blue Eden projects. Eden project is that association with it. So Blue Eden development. But other opportunities outside of that have a requirement for any form of lighting or design or service or screens, any of that kind of thing is absolutely within our wheelhouse.
Thanks, Ian. I think Elvid from Pobl Group's got a question for you.
Hi, Ian. I work for Pobl. I don't know if you know Pobl. We're a large housing provider, primarily in the sort of affordable housing sector, but we also build homes for sale as well. And we operate in the Swansea area, in the Swansea region area. So my question is similar, I think, to a question that was asked earlier on. How are you going to identify partners, to work with you on some of the housing elements of the project that you've got? It seems to me that you know, we know the area. We have a strong presence in the area. We can work with you, subject to whatever process you need to go along.
In answer your question very simply, so it's via mechanisms like this. So yeah, we have people that we're talking to. So for example, Urban Splash are known to us. Obviously, they're involved in probably slightly higher end rather than affordable. But nonetheless, at the moment, it's open for discussion. It's open for consideration. So by all means, send details over. The domestic residences are further down the line. So they are the final 5 years of the project. So nonetheless, I'm conscious that you have to go through the whole planning process. And where we can work with local people who understand the local set of requirements and understand the people to work with to get the planning through, then it absolutely makes sense rather than going out to a Redrow, for example, or a Morganstone and asking them to do it on our behalf.
No, I mean we're already working with Urban Splash on some of the stuff. I mean, a lot of what they want to do in Swansea involves an element of affordable housing, and therefore they can either choose to be the affordable housing landlord themselves, or probably more sensibly work with an established existing landlord, like for example Coastal or Pobl, because we understand the area really well, and we really I think from my part, I think it'd be very exciting to work as part of an initiative where we can get some community heat networks from what you're doing as a sort of as a very natural and logical sort of byproduct of what you're doing in a beautiful setting. So I think I'll get in touch with you via Zoe, and we'll take that discussion forward.
Well, say no, there are no doors are closed. So everything at the moment is open for everything. And I mean, to give you an example, I mean, we had somebody contact us and said they were interested. They were developing a kind of drone type helicopter system that would be able to take people from the development and take them anywhere around Wales. Well, is that really part of what we're doing at the minute? No, it's not. Is that something that could be interesting for the future? Yes, of course it could. So of course, if you're going to do that, you have to start making provision for it in here and now, and having helipads and whatever within the structure. So nothing is off the table. Nothing. I mean, don't get me wrong. There've been a couple of weird and wonderful suggestions on various things, but for the most part, everything. We're open to everything, and we'll certainly consider it.
I think that's the beauty of Ian coming to talk to us today. It's really early on in the stages, isn't it, Ian? And you're you're really keen to get out and meet everybody, and like you say, get the DST.
But we want to fast track this thing through. We don't want to be here in 10 years' time. Just wondering, well, what if?
And as you've said, the beauty of that is that you've already lined up private investors. I'm very interested to find out who can offer up to 4.2 billion. There's a lot of investment there.
There's a lot of people with a lot of money. That's the point.
Oh, Ian, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been really, really insightful, and we'll look forward to doing more with DST and getting more of our members involved. As members, and most of you are members for the region, you're welcome to take this opportunity yourselves. Helen, you've mentioned a load of projects that you're involved in. We have these development and investment meetings on a regular basis. So if you would like to have an opportunity to share with other members what you're up to, I'm more than happy to set that up. Elvid.
Yeah, I saw that invitation, and I just wanted to say that Pobl, obviously, we build a significant number of homes in the region every year. We have a commitment to placemaking and to create 10,000 new homes over the next decade, which is quite an ambitious target. But we also have a serious commitment to carbon cutting as well. So some good news is that we after some work that we did over the latter part of last year, we've now settled on what our net zero carbon journey is going to look like, and the kind of standard that we're going to be adopting this month onwards, and then improving that standard with a view to being a net zero carbon developer as soon as possible. I mean, the target is 2030, but as soon as possible. If we can do that sooner, then great. I've done quite a bit of analysis to show not only what the carbon reduction potential of the type of standard that we're going for will be, but also how we're also addressing fuel poverty as well, which is a major concern. You know, we both ambitions are equally important to us, addressing fuel poverty whilst also reducing our carbon footprint. And to do so, you know, by stretching ourselves in terms of challenging ourselves and our supply chain. I suppose the reason I'm saying this now is that I could share very briefly with you what that looks like in a slide, but just to ensure that our members hear that, you know, we are serious about this, and we're going to the first genuine moves are now being made. So all of our new homes contracts, which will be put out to tender, will require compliance with that standard. So I don't know how long I've got, or whether you want me to flash a slide on a screen. It's up to you.
Yeah, if everybody's happy, we'd love to see that, Elvid. That would be fantastic. Thank you. Great.
So it's one slide that summarizes everything that we've been working on over the last few months. I'll explain this to you. I imagine with the audience I've got, the concepts are going to be relatively familiar to you. But we start with this is for our new build, by the way. There's a whole effort going on to retrofit our 14,000 existing homes across South Wales. So this is our new builds, and so the first and most important principle that underpins our standard is fabric first. The idea that if we can minimize the amount of heat losses through the fabric, whether it's through using very thermally insulated materials and also reducing leakage through air tightness or bad air tightness, but also addressing some key elements of thermal bridging where you get cold bridges from the inside to the outside, and also addressing the performance gap. So there's a comment there about moving towards off-site manufacturing, not exclusively, but really moving forward. I heard a very interesting talk last night from a group very similar to ours, actually, based in Bristol. And they say that Homes England now want to see 25% of all new homes built in off-site manufacturing using modern methods. And some of the reasons behind that, there are many reasons behind that, but some of the reasons behind that are to do with reducing the performance gap. So the gap that unfortunately happens between what you design and what actually gets built, especially when you build on-site in all sort of weathers using the conventional building methods. Unfortunately, we're not good enough at making sure that what we build is exactly what we designed. And then there's an emphasis on an increased use of natural materials. I'll explain what I mean by that. You know, we insulate our buildings using foam that's produced through the petrochemical industry, and we've got to move away from that. We feel there are insulated materials like wool, wood fibre, recycled paper. They're much healthier for people in terms of when you think about the amount of time you spend in your house. And we'd all talk about air quality outside the house, where you actually spend more time inside your house. And so there's an increasing focus on internal air quality through the promotion of, I think we're not going to switch overnight to doing this, but we want to go on a journey which leads us to this. And then finally, on that left-hand side, a timber first preference. And where we need to get to is where we're building our homes primarily from locally sourced Welsh timber, but we're a long way from that. And the reason why we want to do that is it sequesters carbon, but also if it's locally sourced, it reduces transportation as well. So, you know, that's where we're heading. And that's that fabric first kind of ideal where, yeah, we could probably aim for even higher, better U values, better air tightness. And we know that exists, but this is our journey. And we will try to improve this once we get ourselves and our supply chain used to building to this standard. And then finally, on the right-hand column, yes, we're moving away from gas. All new homes have to be off gas if they get Welsh Government grant. Now, that's already a fact. So we seriously need to look into the integration. And, you know, it's not just about adding technologies, it's about the form factor of the house, which way are you orientating it, and the level of glazing that you use on certain elevations and so on. But we do believe that in order to offer our customers lower energy bills, that we've got to integrate not only renewable energy, but we've also got to integrate battery storage and intelligent controls as well, so that we make the most of those technologies. And I'll briefly show you a very brief slide I can't go into all of the sort of financial machinations that have gone into this standard, but the most significant one for me, or one of the most significant ones for me, is this set of graphs. They indicate our short, our medium, and our long-term standard, where we're going to progressively improve the air tightness or the U values. Let's focus on the long-term one, because that's where we want to be in 3 or 4 years' time. The dark grey graph is the average cost of the average monthly energy cost of living in a 3-bedroom house in the UK. So that's any house. That could be a listed medieval house or a house we built last year. It's around about 130 combined gas and electricity. The light grey column is the kind of house, 3-bedroom house we've been building over the last, say, 5 years under building regulations 2014. And that's a lower figure. So we're generally achieving EPC B there, if you're familiar with the energy performance criteria. And that's around £88 a month. If we move to our long-term standard, so that's the standard I just showed you on the slide, and where we want to get to, using smart energy controls, we can get that monthly fuel bill, which will be exclusively electricity, down to around £49 a month. That's a big promise to make to people, and that's something that we'll need to build and monitor and report back on. But based on the science and building things with no performance gap, that's where we think we can get to. And I think I'll stop there in case anyone's got a question, but I think that's really exciting. There's a very good reason why we're doing this. We're doing it for 2 main reasons. We want to lower the carbon footprint of all of our new and existing homes. We also want to do that. We know there'll be challenges in an all-electric world unless we are very smart about how we use technology as well. So I can I'll stop sharing my screen unless you think I should leave that up, Zoe.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you, Elvid. I think stop sharing for now, and then I think Lee has already got his hand up, if that's okay.
Thanks for that. Looks super interesting. Just 2 quick things to share really. Yesterday I was at an OPD house in Wales, which is straw bale, but pre-manufactured straw bale walls that are slotted together kind of thing. And honestly, it was so warm in there. They have no heating on. Their concrete floor in socks. You know, I thought you had a heated floor. It's so amazing what you can do with real insulation. But I'm interested to know, maybe it's way too long a question and answer kind of thing, what can be done with existing cold, pebble dash, damp, dark homes, because there's such a huge housing stock everywhere. And just throwing air source heating at those is going to lead to huge electricity bills for people down the road, because the heat's just going straight out of them. So I'm just interested if you have.
Well, I can probably, although it's not my part of the business because I'm about the new build, I have got quite informed, feel like, as a response to that, which is I think fabric first has to be the mantra. We are aligning what we're doing for our new builds with the approach that we're taking to our retrofit. You have to start with fabric first. You have to understand the building, the house you're looking at. There are so many different archetypes of housing in Wales, dozens. Essentially, you have to understand the fabric of the house. It could be a Victorian house, it could be a house built in the 60s, or it could be a house actually, and it's a bit of a shame, isn't it, to say this, but it could be a house built 5 years ago. You have to understand the house before you start thinking about how you can then start to maybe improve the performance of that in terms of its fabric. And yes, we're not going to rip out thousands and thousands of perfectly good gas boilers. We will do that as a progressive approach to when their natural lifetime has elapsed. But I think you have to apply all the lessons in all the approach that we're going to take to the new build. So start with fabric first, reduce heat losses, with as much as you can. You can't really, I don't think it's very sustainable to knock down whole streets of houses because they don't work properly. I think that there's a huge philosophical debate about the locked in carbon and the destruction of communities. I think you have to survey, understand the homes, apply a fabric first mentality, and of course you have to integrate renewable technologies, and batteries and smart energy control systems, because without the battery storage and some smart energy control, you are laying open the potential of putting people into fuel poverty. So you have to, it's a full court press, but it starts with fabric first. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I suppose, what I understand as well. I was interested to know, you know, what the approach.
I'm going very fabric first today. I've got
You are.
I'm reducing my energy costs by putting I look stupid, but I feel, I don't feel cold, you know.
I was about to go and get my hat.
I know. Oh, thank you both. That's really great. I think it's really, there's a real opportunity as well, isn't there, for the development and construction businesses right across South West Wales to upskill. Yeah. And I think there's real opportunities for them.
And that's massive. We can't do this on our own. We absolutely have to use every penny of our investment to help training, to invest in apprenticeships, to, you know, because at the end of the day, it's building it, right? But then it's actually servicing it and maintaining it. And there's a whole kind of landscape of new skills and that we need in order to achieve what we need to achieve. Yeah,
and there's a big sort of sales job for that industry to understand what the opportunities are as well, isn't there? You know, I think lots of the sort of builders and contractors that we know probably don't even fully understand it themselves, and there's a sort of state of urgency, really, isn't it, when you guys are building houses already? Yeah,
it's and especially down to the smaller, medium-sized companies. You know, the larger companies, I mean, somebody mentioned Bouygues earlier on, they're all over it. You know, they've got all of they know exactly what the governments want, they know where the funding opportunities lie. But it's an amazing fact that in Wales, you know, there's a significant amount of what gets built, even if it gets built by the big companies, they rely on smaller businesses, to subcontractors, to do that, and they may not be anywhere near as aware as we are of the challenge and some of the skills that they need to obtain access to. So I can see another hand up, actually.
Yeah, Vicky. Sorry, Vicky.
Sorry, that's fine. I found it inspiring and interesting as well. Just worry about some things. One is that my experience is that unless you get the users of the house passionate and interested and motivated, and you often waste your time with just providing, you know, because people then sort of go around in their shirt sleeves in the winter, put on patio heaters and all that sort of thing. So motivation from users is key. Obviously, you won't know all of your users, but pass houses from one person to another. So hopefully, the information about how to run it will be shared. And things that seem to work most best is where the users are interacting with renewables, such as solar hot water, solar thermal is one of the most obvious, easy things where you can immediately see the result of sunshine, hot water. And although it's not a popular thing, wood fires, provided the wood is sustainable and local, and seasoned and so on, is another really good way to reduce your carbon. Whereas heat pumps, I worry about dependence on them, because using electricity for heating, even multiplied by a heat pump, is not the best use for electricity, which, you know, heat is obviously a dumb load and can be achieved by many methods. You don't need a refined, amazing tool like electricity for it. So I just wondered whether those thoughts were at all in your minds, whether you just into air source heat pumps.
No, I think
work very hard in cold weather and use a lot of electricity.
Yeah, I think you raised a number of points, and I'll try to sort of talk about briefly, you know, what we are doing. I've spent a significant part of the last year speaking to tenants, meeting with them when I'm allowed to, and talking to them about their energy bills, and because we've been lucky to get funding to build 2 or 3 innovative, I suppose you can use the word pilot type projects using different ideas. One we're using ground source heat pumps, another one we're using air source heat pumps, where we're using different ideas, and we're talking to them about, and we're experiencing what some of their problems are, and learning from that. So innovation isn't just about looking forward and doing new things and just not looking back. You've got to speak to people. We're lucky. We have direct. I'm emailing people and phoning people every day, not just through some kind of portal, but actually phoning them, going out, sitting down, having a cup of tea with them, and they're telling me about some things that don't work, and it's not nice to hear about, but you've got to listen, and you've got to not only listen, you've got to learn and how to put that right, because what I've shown you is a standard, and once we press the button, that's what we're going to be building, and we're going to be building hundreds of them, thousands of them. So look, we hear what you're saying, speaking to people, what works, what doesn't work, and trying to make sure that the next version of what you do learns from those lessons, so that ultimately, which is a journey, you get maybe to 3 or 4 years time with a very tried and tested way of making sure that the house performs to the best of its ability, and it's easy to live there as a person. You feel comfortable, but you don't have to have a science major to be able to do it. So it's constantly being thought about, Vicky, I can assure you. And some of the other ideas, ground source heat pumps are something that we're looking at as well, and we know that they've got much better coefficient of power, but there are challenges. They cost more to put in, and you have to have some kind of management agreement. But look, we're trying to find the right answer with the very best of intentions. So we will get there.
Thank you, Albert. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. I hope you've all enjoyed. It's great to get together and hear what each other's projects and initiatives are up to. Thanks again to Ian for your presentation on DST. It's great to hear about them. We've got coming up in March is our Swansea City Centre conference, which Pobl will be there talking, exhibiting and talking about your project for promoting the Pentrail project, which I think is what you've been talking about, Elvid, is it? Pentrail, sorry. But you've got 144.
You're mute.
Sorry, I've unmuted myself. No, I think we'll be talking about Gwynfine, which is a really exciting project.
That's the one,
which is finally getting out of the ground. 144 net zero carbon homes built from Welsh materials and wood fibre insulation. No bricks.
Yeah, it's exciting. And then Ian and DST
hi,
will
Chris,
be
I can see on the screen now. I can't resist saying hi to you as well. Thanks.
It's good to see you, brother.
So
yeah,
thank you again.
My tailor hasn't been in contact, I take it then, but there you go, no problem.
I think Elvid should start a little shop with selling his woolly hats. I think we could all do that.
Don't encourage him. Nah, he's a great guy, great ambassador for the business. I spend a lot of time with him.
That's very nice of you to say so. Thank you very much, Chris, and yourself.
Pleasure. You know that. And I just quickly did send a message to you, Zoe, but for Ian, just to say that back in the days, Andrew Scott, we were heavily involved with the initial Tidal Lagoon scheme. We did an awful lot of programming, logistical discussions around barging for creating the lagoon itself. We were actually awarded the first part of the project, which was the turbine manufacturing hall. So, we've got a lot of understanding of your site and also some cost program, technical and logistical data, which we would be happy to
Chris, definitely drop me a line through, and we'll have a separate call to this, and grab our CEO. So I'm kind of a little bit on the periphery of this whole thing, so I'm trying to run DST and do this as well. But our CEO is very kind of very sort of in depth and entrenched within this. So it'd be certainly worthwhile having a call with him, just to see really where we can.
I think there's a lot of companies that were involved initially, as you said. Sure. We've all got little chunk nuggets of knowledge. Yeah. And maybe if we can pass those or filter those through to you, maybe it'll just help in the grand scheme of things to start to de-risk what is a much needed but a very exciting project.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you, everyone. That's great. I'll be sharing information and swapping email addresses for everybody so that you can all keep in touch, and we'll look forward to reconvening again in a couple of months. I think our next development and investment meeting is, and like I mentioned, in the meantime, hope to see you all at the Swansea City Centre conference on the 17th of March, where we'll be celebrating all things coming up, existing and coming up in Swansea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
bye
thanks.
for now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.